Hey everybody, what is going on? It is Dan Bach for another edition here of the Roto Grinders Daily Fantasy Fix podcast. Of course, we're presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel.com. Lots of great stuff happening at FanDuel tonight. Make sure you check them out as they kind of took my advice on something. I don't know if they did, but something I suggested via Twitter the other day. And we've got, WFFCQs. There's been some controversy around these. They've been offering some three-man contests around those at like ridiculous buy-in levels. But tonight for NBA, they actually have a pretty solid one. The buy-in is $600, so it's not cheap, but it's not insanely expensive. It's a 100-man field, and if you win that 100-man tournament, you'll win a ticket to the football championship out there in LA. So I like that. Now, it's a winner-take-all, so if you finish second, sucks to be you. But joining me today on the podcast, I think I saw Hoop 2410 pre-registered in this tournament already. What's going on, Hoop? How are you, man?
Doing well. Yeah, I like the format here. The only thing that does kind of suck, I think, is like you said, the all or nothing format. So bubbling here would be about the worst thing possible. But yeah, it's cool, and obviously they're trying to sell these seats. Definitely better than the 18K three-man. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I think that everybody's kind of like whatever on that. Like, I'm not a fan of it. I think this is a much better way to do it because you're still having like a legit tournament out there. And you're right, it does suck to bubble a $53,000 valued seat.
Yeah.
But it's a 100-man contest too. So it's not like, you necessarily have to have a top 1% lineup. See, that's the thing that bothers me so much is when you have a top 1% lineup and then you have nothing to show for it. But in a smaller field like this, decent buy-in, I'm even considering taking a shot at this one and, seeing if we can't outlast it. And, again, with a 100-man field, I think max entry on that is 3 as well. So you're not really dealing with too much multi-entry. So they've got that going for you tonight. The Mega Monster, a $500,000 prize pool on FanDuel with $100K going to first place. So that's a field of 1867. It's already at 525 this morning, so good chance that sucker's going to fill. And the shot at 350K. Interesting to see the shot at 350 after it filled at a $500,000 yesterday with like an hour to go. I mean, basketball on FanDuel is still a pretty massive game going on right there. And I'd like to see a lot of the single entry tournaments they have as well in their lobby right now, including the 11K NBA windmill. Now, I was hoping we could have Tony be here, and that should be his tournament to do well in. But he obviously had a late night with Billy Bob Thornton watching Bad Santa 2, and couldn't make it out of the bed this morning. But that's all right. He's probably working on some windmill teams as well. So a lot of good stuff happening there. And, of course, they, I think, have their big $1 million tournament coming up the first week in December. It's got a high buy-in of $1,500, but you can get some satellite seats into that one here in the coming weeks. And, of course, this weekend you've got football on Thursday. You got football in the main slate on Sunday. So loading you up with good stuff over on FanDuel this week. Hoop, we take a look at this slate, and I woke up this morning, you fire everything up, and then you realize, oh, my God, it's one of those. Yeah. It's one of those slates where I think every team is playing or darn close to it. How many games we have? What is it?
13. Yeah, I think everyone no NBA games tomorrow, so they loaded up the schedule for tonight. And it's 13. I think you and I are kind of in the same boat where even 9 games I think is optimal. With 13, I mean it can be stressful because the news in the NBA this season has been fast and furious. There's been a lot of guys resting, a lot of injuries here. So today could be a pretty frantic pre-lock scramble.
Yeah, because again, like typically in those 6, 8, 10, even 10 game slates to a point, but more like 6 to 8. We have a pretty good idea of where like we might potentially have some issues in terms of people sitting out. On a 13 gamer, it's tough to know, and that one bit of news in one place can shift the optimal build very, very quickly. And that's kind of the problem that you run into. Now, on a day like today, do you play more cash? Do you play more tournaments, or does it not really affect your play? How do you
Yeah,
handle
for me,
these
I
games?
mean, I kind of do the same regardless. But if you're a tournament player, there's a lot more pivots, I guess, off of guys that might be popular. So it's probably fun for tournament guys, but still, I mean, it's tough, and it's definitely challenging today with so many games on the slate.
Yeah, the one thing I like about tournaments is too, like even the higher price guys, the Westbrooks, maybe not Anthony Davis right now, but Harden. The ownership on all these guys is going to be a little bit more spread out because there's so many different ways to build teams. Like I think, like if you're really sold on a guy to be like under 4 or 5% owned, like I think there's going to be a lot of those guys out there that can really give you an edge in tournaments. You just kind of got to figure out who they were. Like last night, for example, Murray over there on Denver was the sharp play, and he was less than 1% owned, or right around 1% owned, 2% owned on a 4-game slate. Somebody like him on a 13-game slate, maybe not today because he was so good yesterday, but somebody of that status is probably going to come in at ownership of less than 0.5%.
Yeah.
And like that is a monstrous edge to get on a field. And I think we've got the ability to, maybe take advantage of that in the mega large field tournaments here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these guys, last night, like you said, Murray, no one was on him on a 4-game slate. So if you find your guy today, I mean, I think it's a good chance to just go ahead and kind of go all in. If that guy goes off, you have a huge leg up on the competition.
Yeah, we'll see if we can't find those guys today, but it's going to be a big slate for us, so we're going to truck on through and see do the best we can. Again, we record this pretty early in the day on Wednesday, so definitely a lot of the injury news and notes. Some of it has fallen, but still a lot to come out there. All right, we'll start at point guard here, Hoop, and we're using FanDuel as our point of reference. Westbrook played last night, and I didn't watch too much of the game because I'm old and I fall asleep. But this morning I woke up and I was like, oh, it looked like a typical Westbrook game, 34, 13, 8, 60 fantasy points right around there. Yeah. But I dug in a little bit, and did you see his usage last night?
I didn't see the exact number. No, what was it?
He got over 50% last night. I mean,
it's insane.
That is crazy to see. Took 30 shots for him, and now he moves into a 3rd game and 4-night situation in a matchup on the road in Sacramento. The line on this one's at 211, so it's not enormous, and we're definitely missing a few Vegas totals here because of injury concerns or whatnot. Westbrook, it feels like on a 13-game slate, we're probably going to have enough value to fit him in. Does 3rd and 4 worry you at all after a guy who, kind of did what he did last night, or not so much?
Doesn't worry me so much. I mean, certain guys, yes, but not with Westbrook. Obviously, having tomorrow off. But I mean, three games in 4 nights is not optimal. But like you said, the usage just absolutely insane. 30 shots, and obviously contributes across the board. And when it's all said and done, it's hard to make an argument for anyone else being the top fantasy producer on this slate. So not optimal conditions with the 3rd and 4, but he's just still too cheap at 11.6K for what you're getting.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you too. I think the matchup's fine against Sacramento. I mean, I think again in cash games it's hard not to kind of lock in a guy like that when he's all that they have and they know it. And it's just like a lock and load pretty much every single night. So yeah, and unfortunately they lost that game 111 to 109. So that was a tight game there for OKC. But talking about point guards on the high end, he is. I think I'd much prefer him. You look at the other options here, and we've got Chris Paul at 9.3, Damian Lillard at 9K, and Stephen Curry at 8.8. I mean, typically you're like, wow, you can go for 2,600 from Lillard to Westbrook. But I just feel like, all those spots are kind of tricky. Like Paul they could easily blow out Dallas. Dallas is a terrible team. Yeah. Lillard on the back end of a back-to-back on the road in Cleveland, not a great spot there. And then Curry against the Lakers, who played last night. They lost to the Lakers the last time they played them, I believe. They're going to blow them out. It just feels like Westbrook is in pretty much the best spot out there as well.
Yeah. On top Yeah, best spot. I mean, if you take away the 3 and 4 nights, it's by far the best spot. And yeah, these other guys less than optimal spots. I mean, like you said, like Clippers at Dallas, and Clippers have blown out like 5 or 6 teams this season, and these guys are only playing like 26, 27 minutes and blowout. So it's hard there. Lillard back to back in Cleveland, easily be a blowout. Like you said, with the Golden State Warriors at home against the Lakers. Who are on a back-to-back, and the Lakers got the best of them last time they played in LA. So you have to imagine they're going to take it to them. So, yeah, I mean, the best spend at the position is Westbrook, no doubt.
Yeah, and if you had to pick a favorite amongst those other guys, if you wanted to go double, pay up doubly on point guard, I mean, are those guys even in play for you? I don't even know how much in play they are. Like maybe Lillard. But I'm just looking down in that 7K tier, and I see so many better options here tonight that I don't envision me playing Paul Lillard or Curry much at all today.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Curry, but I mean, then you really look at things. He's only, even on this 8.8K price tag, which is by far the lowest we've seen, dating back to probably 2 seasons ago. You look at it, and he's hit value like 4 times all season, even at this 8.8K price tag. So a lot of risk with him as well. So I'd probably go ahead and pinpoint a mid-tier guy or a cheap guy here to pair up with Westbrook.
Well, this next range, there's a lot of guys to consider here because we can start with Kyle Lowry tonight. He gets a matchup versus Houston, which, we talk about pace, and it is very paced up out there. Anytime Houston's playing, it's a close spread between these two teams. He's in a great spot. Brooklyn is terrible. They play fast. 214 over under. Isaiah Thomas 8.2 is a little bit much for him, but he's playing really, really well this season. And then you go down and you got guys like Kyrie Irving tonight at 7.6, Bledsoe at 7.5. I think Bledsoe and Irving to me is a really, really good play and a tough decision between these two. What's your takeoff on that, especially with TJ Warren already out? We've kind of seen Bledsoe's shots tick up a little bit the last couple games. Yeah,
and Bledsoe, he's actually, just from watching the game, he's looked a lot better on the court than he has throughout the season. Really, his pull-up jump shot, 15 to 18-footer, starting to fall for him, and I think that's been the biggest difference we see in back-to-back solid performances for him. So I like him a lot here at 7.5K. I mean, you don't really have much blowout concern here with the Magic. They're a terrible team. Suns are a terrible team, so it should be a competitive game between two pretty bad teams. Kyrie Irving, I like that price too at 7.6K. So I think, this is a very appealing price point here, this 7.6, 7.5 for Irving and Bledsoe.
I'm guessing Jeff Teague will play today. I know he kind of got hurt last game, stayed out, but that price jumped a little bit up to 7K. But he does have revenge on the vine tonight as he gets Atlanta, who they haven't been great against point guards, and boy, did they get absolutely hammered last night without Anthony Davis playing like 3 quarters. Crazy.
Yeah, that was the most surprising game of the night there. I mean, the Pelicans just taking it to the Hawks. So the big news with Teague would be whether Paul George plays or not, and I think he's currently listed as they have game time decision here, so essentially questionable. So if he's out, that's a massive boost to Jeff Teague. So this is one of the spots where we're going to have to wait and see on the injury news. And if George is out, Teague becomes a very appealing option, even with the price increase. I mean, we've seen the ceiling here. What do you have? The 58.5 fantasy point performance. So the ceiling's massive if George is out.
He was actually playing pretty good last game, too. I mean, he got you a fantasy point a minute, which is good, not great. But you look at the number of shots that he took early on, I think clearly he's going to be an offensive force. And the narrative is there. There's no doubt. I mean, he played in Atlanta for a long time, so I could see him, really wanting to play well in that game. Okay, anybody in the cheap here? Who are the cheapies that we can maybe consider today?
Yeah, the few guys that kind of stand out to me are, all under 6K. Elfrid Payton, I think this is a good matchup for him. 5.7K. Dennis Schroeder, he actually was the one Hawk, I think, that played pretty well last night. Only got 27 minutes, but picked up essentially 30 fantasy points, a pretty well-balanced game. So, I mean, if that game stays close, he has a pretty massive performance, I think it's safe to assume. So I do like him in that range. Might be just about it. I don't really see too much more that stands out.
Any interest in chasing Murray after his monster game? He's 3.8 today, and I mean he looked awesome last night. That was really the first game that I've watched of him, and to be fair, I don't think he's going to shoot 9 for 13 again. But just the way he was on the floor, he looked faster and better than most of the other players for the Nuggets. And you got to wonder, 34 fantasy points in 21 minutes, that he's going to get more playing time. But are we chasing there at 3.8 today?
At 3.8, I'm fine, because you look at the production and he essentially needs like 17 fantasy points in cash games to not kill you. And he's done that in 4 out of 5 games. I mean, the problem the Nuggets have, they just have so many viable players. They have guys that need minutes. I mean, you look last night, I think Murray and Jokic were probably their 2 best players. I watched a good portion of this game. Jokic played 18 minutes and Murray played 22 minutes. So they have a problem here with too many guys. I mean, really, they do need to make a trade. But for now, I think 3.8K, I'd be fine going there. The matchup, obviously brutal here against Utah. So I think that's the one drawback.
Yeah, I think George Hill will see his status as well. He's been practicing, still questionable for tonight. It is a tougher matchup. Played last night. I think he's more of a tournament option. DraftKings, he's at 3.5, so that site, it might open up the ability to get Westbrook, because he's really juiced up over there at over 12K. Yeah. So on FanDuel, you might not need to go there typically. All right, let's go on to what about Tim Frazier, too? He's the other guy to talk about. He had a monster game last night, over 50 fantasy points, and he's still pretty cheap. I mean, it's like, I swear, when everybody kind of jumps on him, he knows it and he plays terrible. And then when you're not really considering him is when he goes for like 30 to 50 fantasy points. Yeah. Let's talk about like Davis, for example. I mean, he did come back in the game, but if they would say, back into a back-to-back, we're going to sit him, who gets the biggest jump there? Because we saw, obviously, Frazier do well. I think Terrence Jones last night as well, but his price is a little bit juiced up. But is Frazier in play for you at all here today? And is it more in play if AD doesn't play?
Yeah, I definitely think so. The usage would be massive. So if Davis is out, it's definitely Jones that gets the biggest bump. But then a guy like Tim Frazier at 5.4K really should stabilize his role. We saw what he did last night, kind of took over the scoring role on that team, 53 fantasy points, like you mentioned. So I think he would certainly be in play. The back-to-back here, in a few back-to-back spots for him earlier in the season, the minutes were kind of reduced, but as of late, it seems like his role's really stabilized, which is weird because they're getting guys back with Drew Holiday back in the rotation. Gentry's a tough coach to figure out in terms of playing time for guys and rotation. So that's the only concern I have. But if he's going to play, if you project him to play over 30 minutes, I think he's definitely a guy you have to consider at 5.4K. I'm glad you mentioned that.
All right, let's get to shooting guard here, where obviously on the high end of the spectrum, we've got James Harden, who is sitting at 11.6, versus, let's see, Westbrook is at that same price as he had 11.6 too on FanDuel?
Yep, same.
Okay. Again, I haven't gone through a roster build yet, but I think I'm on Team Russell over Team Harden here today. Both are good, though.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with you. The problem here tonight is you're going to have to make some tough decisions. You're going to have some tough fades in cash games and tournaments. And Westbrook in a good spot. Harden, I think this is a good spot for him. 11-6 at home. Game should be competitive against Toronto. Then you have LeBron and Kevin Durant under 10K. You have Anthony Davis. I think there's obviously concern there with injury. Guys like Blake Griffin under 10K, and then you go to center. You have DeMarcus. You have Hassan Whiteside, who is just on fire right now. So the decision is going to be tough. and you really just have to go ahead and stack up the value plays and figure out, kind of have to prioritize the value plays and see, what position the best value plays are, and you're going to have to pass on some of these top guys. I agree with you. I haven't gone through and done some deep roster builds, but right now I think it's Westbrook over Harden, but that could change if some injury news pops up.
Yeah, and if you can ever fit them both, it's never a bad thing. DeMar DeRozan at that second salaried position, 9,400 on FanDuel. He's actually 700 more on FanDuel than DraftKings, which is somewhat unusual. So looking like a better value potentially over there. But I'll be curious to see how this matchup goes because, where is James? I think the question is, where is James Harden going to land defensively? Because we saw, I think in that game against Detroit, I didn't watch that game, but I'm assuming that Harden ended up on – I don't know if he was on KCP or not. There was some talk that was going to happen. He kind of went off that game. But regardless, shooting guard, point guard, I think they can excel here. You've got Lowry on one end. You've got DeRozan, at the 2 position here. So, man, he's been a scoring machine, and I don't really see it slowing down too much here.
Yeah, I mean, I always say it. DeRozan's just a guy I typically don't play, but the argument against fading him is becoming tougher and tougher. I mean, leading the league in scoring over, I think, 31.5 fantasy point or 31.5 actual points per game. And you look at the game log, he's had one essential bust all season, and that was 2 games ago against the Kings of all teams, probably his best matchup he's had all year. But you have to imagine he's going to get his in this matchup, a fast-paced game. I don't think they really have a defender that can really slow him down. If he gets Harden, that's fine. If he gets Ariza, that's fine. Whatever it may be, he's going to find his stroke here. And 9.4K is a lot to pay for him. I think he'll probably be pretty low owned. But like you said, if you're playing on another site like DraftKings, much cheaper there.
I was really enjoy the first look column where Notorious looks at the average points per game versus the projected points per game for the night. The biggest risers on that are Cleveland versus Portland at plus 5.9 and Boston against Brooklyn at plus 6.8. That's a big one. And I thought for sure Toronto would be up, but they're not, believe it or not. They are right on their same number at 107.5 here today, and Houston is barely up at 1.4. So they're not really looking at any sort of a change in pace for Toronto this week. Even when you look at the pace numbers, they're kind of on point. So maybe it isn't going to be as tempoed as we necessarily thought in this game. That's just something that I'm looking at the numbers here, and it wasn't what I expected. And when I see that, kind of puts something in my head that I might need to take a step back and reevaluate it.
Yeah, I mean, that does certainly make sense. But then on the other hand, you kind of have to look at it, the matchup here. Both teams are going to want this game. It's kind of a premier game. Raptors going to want to beat Houston. Houston's obviously going to want to win at home here. So I think we see maybe a couple, extra minutes for these guys and some harder play. So definitely 2 ways to look at it. But, 9.4 probably still just a little bit too much for me to pay for DeRozan, a very scoring dependent type guy.
Yeah, and Ariza, I'm glad that you brought him up because he is the one guy who I think is fairly solid defender, and I'm trying to think they're going to have to mix something up there because Beverly, I mean, unless they put a Harden on him, and if he does, that's just going to be an absolute disaster.
Yeah,
absolute
that won't work out. Yeah, that's not going to work out too well.
Yeah, I guess they could maybe put Harden on DeMarre Carroll. That could potentially be the play, assuming Carroll plays. But it's interesting trying to figure out those kind of defensive rotations there. All right, at the other shooting guard options for us, take me through a few other guys that you like this week or like tonight.
Yeah, so Devin Booker, I mean, he's 6.1K, but I've talked about it a couple times on here, just very scoring dependent. I mean, if he's not going to score in the upper 20s, he's probably going to bust, and that's kind of what we've seen. I mean, 0 peripherals. I mean, in his last three games, we're looking at 4, 6. We're looking at 10 total rebounds and assists. I mean, very scoring dependent. He needs to get in the upper 20s. So I know a lot of people like him as a player. I think he'll be fine, in the future as an NBA player. But for DFS, he's super scoring dependent. If I'm in this range, I'd probably just go ahead and settle on a guy like Klay Thompson or Oladipo, who I like both these guys. 6K for Thompson, shot finally falling. Would have been in line for a big game last time out. Blowout happened, really didn't get there. Still finished with 28 fantasy points, which is fine for his price tag. Oladipo, I think his role's finally starting to stabilize with the Thunder. 4 straight solid games from him, so I think he's a good play, and he'll probably be pretty popular tonight, I'd guess. Guys like Rodney Hood, too cheap. Fournier, 5.3K. I mean, there's actually a lot of value here, so I think that makes the case for fading Harden even stronger.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Jordan Clarkson, we got to keep our eye out, too, on this kid because he's been playing really well. And, D'Angelo Russell didn't play last night. I mean, there's a chance Russell does play because he did play, the game prior to this one, or not yesterday, but the game before that he did. So they might have just been resting him and saying, hey, we're going to play him on one end of the back-to-back, and, we'll take our chances against OKC instead of against Golden State. So, that worries me a little bit, but, his production, 3 of the last 4, 34, 29, and 30 at just 4,900. If we get no Russell, I like it, but still the minutes are not, barely going over 30. So, but he's getting it done though. Still,
yeah, he's getting it done. I mean, that's going to be the problem with the Lakers all season. They're running a deep rotation right now, about 10 guys, and no one's really getting over 30 minutes consistently. So that's the one drawback. But Clarkson, he looks he looked really good last night. I watched the first half of that game. So if Russell's out, there's going to be some value here from these Lakers guys, and even freaking Nick Young. Just can't believe this guy. Playing really good, and he's been super consistent for fantasy purposes. And you look at the minutes, at least 28 in the last 4 games. So that's definitely one bit of information to monitor. And, honestly, I don't know if we'll get it before first tip tonight.
Yeah, keep your eye on Dallas, too. Looks like they might be getting healthy here tonight against the Clippers. That would really take Seth Curry out of play, who's been playing pretty decent in, an expanded role, but against the Clippers, not really an ideal matchup for him. Let's see who else we've got. I'm kind of off Levine, not really interested in him. He just hasn't been getting it done. Decent matchup here versus the Pels, but man, just there's another team that I feel like could easily trade Levine if they wanted to, because they've got so many shots between Wiggins and KCP. I mean, I think Gorgie Jang's actually a really good fit because he doesn't need him, but Levine's a guy I feel like who could average like 23 to 25 points a game on Brooklyn. Like if you moved him to Brooklyn, he would average like 30 points a game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the one thing I've noticed here with the Timberwolves, it's a near virtual lock for either Levine or Wiggins to bust, because just, like you said, there's just not enough shots, and they're 2 scoring dependent guys. It really seems like one guy goes off, the other guy completely busts. So there's a lot of risk in guys like Levine, Wiggins. For me personally, I've moved both those guys from like cash game plays into more GPP options.
What do we do with Dion Waiters here? This guy has been really good lately. 3 straight, 4 of the last 5. Over 30 fantasy points. That's given us the return that we want for 5,200. Now, to be fair, his salary has gone up about 1,000 over the last 2 weeks. So is he still playable at this number? It's a low total here, though, 189 in this matchup. He and KCP kind of, interesting when you look at 4,800, 5,200, and they're going to jack shots. But I just worry a little bit about how many points we're really going to see in this game.
Yeah, I mean, the game is not ideal for DFS, but what Waiters has been doing is pretty ideal. The playing time's definitely going to be there. The scoring is usually there for a guy like Waiters. And the one thing I like a lot about him this season is the peripherals, and we've seen it a ton in the last 3 games. I mean, 4, 8, and 5 assists from Dion Waiters. I mean, who would have ever imagined that? And he's grabbed some rebounds, too. So, I mean, these last 3 games, He's looked solid, and actually, 4 out of 5, he's been really, really good. Has the one stinker in there for 18 fantasy points, but that doesn't even kill you at 5.2K in terms of cash games. So I've played him quite a bit this season, and I've been happy with the results.
Okay, let's get into the under 4K crappers here. There's a couple to talk about potentially. Tony Allen at 3,900, played 31 minutes last game against Charlotte. It checks in as one of the top price per point guys. What do we kind of set our expectation against Philly for him tonight?
Yeah, I mean, they could be pretty short there. I think Ennis is out, and he had been gobbling up like over 30 minutes. So I think that's the big piece of news for him, and I'm pretty sure he's already been ruled out. I want to say, yeah, he's out. So I think as long as Allen's a go, which he's listed as probable, the minutes should be there. And he's a guy that just kind of needs to be on the court. Not going to score a ton, but rebounds, blocks, steals are his thing. So as long as he's going to get the minutes, which it appears that he will tonight, I think he's a fine value option.
Yeah, I think he's probably one of the premier options when you bring the Ennis news into the conversation. And the thing about him too is he's kind of sneaky in scoring. Like you like I don't want to say it seems like 4 or 5 times a year he's going to have a pretty good scoring game where he goes for like 25 points. Yeah. And then he'll end up with like 40 fantasy points because you're right. He doesn't really disappoint too much in the ancillary categories. So look for him to be a top value here today. And another guy who I usually don't like rostering at all, but I'm somewhat intrigued about, and it's actually, there's the shooting guard on the other side we could talk about too because the matchup is going to be beneficial. And that's looking to Atlanta and Indiana. Kyle Korver is starting to get hot shooting the basketball here. 4 for 5 last night from 3-point range, 2 for 4 the game before. So he's been making value in 3 of the last 4 games. 3,800 is really cheap. This game, I don't know if we've got a total on it yet, but I'm guessing this one's going to be pretty high because Indiana is playing super, super fast here. For the price tag we have on him, I think we could do worse.
Yeah, Korver's a guy I don't mind playing in certain situations. And tonight might be one of those situations where you really want to get some of these stars that are in really good spots. And he's 3.8K. He'll essentially get you another star in your lineup. And he's going to get his shots. It's just a matter of if they fall or not. And like you said, they've been falling, and he's been way over value in 3 out of 4 games. The minutes have really stabilized at least 26 minutes in 7 straight games. So, I think you can do worse than Korver as a punt play today.
And I'll tell you right now, Monte Ellis will be less than 1% owned here tonight. And he gets a date versus Kyle Korver defense potentially here tonight. Now, he's been awful. The shots haven't been there. I would never play him at any sort of cash game. But if you're firing in a 100,000-plus entry tournament, and we talked about trying to find a guy under 5% or less than that, like under 1%, who I think could have some upside, at least defensive matchup, and especially if Paul George is out, like maybe this is a game that Ellis decides to get aggressive shooting. I mean, 5,500 is too expensive to play on most teams, but I'm just throwing him out there. I like the matchup against Kyle Korver. All right, let's get small forward here tonight. And you talked about in the opening the value we kind of get on the top end guys, and LeBron and Durant at both under 10K, 9.8 and 9.9. I mean, that's nice. I mean, that is really, really nice. LeBron at home, Durant at home as well. If you're picking between these two, who would you rather have?
That is tough. I really view them as two super similar plays tonight. I mean, both have some blowout concerns. The spread on the Cleveland game is, I think, 11.5, 12. I'd guess the Warriors one, probably it's not out yet, but would be pretty similar. Wouldn't you agree?
In terms of the total of that one,
or the spread, I think the Warriors will definitely probably come in at least 10, 11, 12, somewhere in that range.
Oh yeah, I'm saying I will say that Golden State is like 14-point favorites.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, similar blowout type concern. I mean, they're averaging similar fantasy points. So I think very similar plays, and they're just too cheap at both under 10K.
Yeah, I think I give the slight edge to LeBron, but the Golden State could have some payback on their mind after the Lakers won that game last time they played. So I think you're right. Both are fine plays, and it might not even be bad to play both of these guys. Might sacrifice. You might have to not play a Russell Westbrook tonight, but I mean, let's put it in a perspective here, Hoop. Like, both these guys can easily match Russell Westbrook tonight, and when you look at the salaries, they're coming in significantly cheaper. Like, I don't think those other point guards do. have the ability to really match him, but LeBron and Durant, I think, absolutely do. And when you look at price per point, I think it's a little bit more interesting to look at those guys. So
yeah, I agree.
And let's look at the other position, because that's the thing that you need to always bring into consideration when you're building your teams is, where do they rank versus the other options you have at that position. And a quick look over here at small forward. I'm not really liking the position here. I mean, Kawhi Leonard's fine at 8'5" against Charlotte. He's matchup proof. He's great game in and game out. But you take him out of the mix, and like the middle tier and the low tier, like I got burned by Kent Bazemore last night. I'm not going to play him. I'm not seeing mega 3K value really standing out right now. Like Durant, last night I made the comment that you sacrificing one of Durant or AD to make sure you got in Carmelo and Jimmy Butler and small forward was kind of the way to build it last night. It worked out that way, especially if you picked Anthony Davis because he played so bad. But I think the same thing could be the plan here tonight with LeBron and Durant, because they just feel head and shoulders above everyone else here at this position, even price per point.
Yeah, you start going through the list of players here, and it's definitely not appealing one bit. You hit up that mid tier, and you got guys super inconsistent. Hayward's going to play a ton, but
he's the one middle tier guy I think I could stomach at 7-1.
Yeah, I think you can make the case. The matchup's good. Andrew Wiggins, I think, is a phenomenal tournament play. I made the mistake of playing him in cash, but last time out that didn't work out so well. But 6.7K, he has the 50 fantasy point upside, but like I said, the floor is pretty low, as we saw in the last two games, 10 and 18 fantasy points. Gallinari in a bad matchup. You come down, I think the one guy that I do like that's a little bit cheaper is Ariza at 5.2K. The minutes are going to be there. The shots will typically be there, and he's been pretty consistent. I mean, look at the game log, and going back 10 games, he's only had one game where he really hasn't reached value. So, actually looking at this now even more, I think I like Ariza a little bit there. Yeah,
I mean, I think historically he hasn't been, but you're right. This year, from the three-point line, I mean, look at the numbers there. He might be, I don't know what he's sitting at DraftKings, but getting that little bonus is kind of interesting because 4 for 10, 4 for 6, 2 for 9, 5 for 11, 4 for 11. So some pretty good shooting there for him in a game that certainly has the highest total on the board today. But I'm digging down here in the cheap seats, and I'm not playing Jeff Green. I mean, Phoenix, they give up a lot of points, but he's Jeff Green. Evan Turner, you can't trust. Hollis Jefferson, maybe. I mean, he's another kind of up and down guy, but he's 4K here today, and I don't know. I don't feel great about it, but maybe.
I guess the one cheapie actually way down here would be Glenn Robinson again. If Paul George is out, he'll be super chalky again. If George is out, we just kind of need that information, which we don't have at this point.
What did he do last game? Let me try.
Right around Valley. I mean, didn't do anything great. Played 37 minutes, finished with 19 fantasy points. That's fine for cash games.
37 minutes and 19 fantasy points. That's it, Big Dog Jr.?
Yeah, I know.
Or Big Dog the Third?
We want more.
What's that?
I said we want more. We want more.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I just actually went to the Hangout, and all of a sudden I see we've got Big T in here. What's up, T?
What's going on, boys? I'm just looking at this app from yesterday, the Play Draft app, and I think I got a hockey W over somebody on this particular podcast.
Hold on. You know what? This is the thing. Here's the thing. The guy misses the first half of the show, and he doesn't say, "Sorry, fellas, had a rough night." He comes back with the
night. You guys are just the early bird gets the worm, and I don't get the worm, I guess.
Well, you know what? I can't speak to what you were engaging in last night, T. This isn't Sunday morning, but I will say, you came in, and you called me out, because you jumped into the show.
How else would I come into the show? I mean, you got to lay some groundwork out there. And
fair enough.
Last night, I haven't won a single night in NBA, I don't think, and I finally had some sweats last night, so I wasn't used to it.
So Bad Santa 2, give us the review.
I mean, it was solid. It came hard. I mean, I didn't like it as much as the first one, but I definitely laughed pretty hard again. So it was definitely entertaining. Maybe if I hadn't seen the first one and it was just a standalone movie, I might have liked it a little more, but it's definitely worth seeing for me. I mean, I loved the first one, though, so. Did you guys like the first one?
Yeah, the first one was fine. It was good.
Yeah, it was good. Solid.
Yeah.
Don't bring your kids. How about that? Do you?
Definitely don't bring your kids or your moms or your grandmas or any of those people, but it was pretty funny, though.
All right, well, let's keep it rolling here, boys. We're down at the we're at the power forward position, and Anthony Davis. You know, last night we had our first kind of Anthony Davis moment where he left the game, but in typical Alvin Gentry style, up like literally, I think they were up 27 in the fourth quarter. Like, if there was ever a moment where you don't play him, like even if he can, that's probably it. You're up 27. He just gashed his knee in, missed the last 2 quarters, and then you throw him in the fourth. Like, Alvin Gentry's an idiot.
Is there a coach in the NBA that makes less sense than Alvin Gentry? There can't be.
No.
It makes no sense. Yeah, so he goes out, like you said, Anthony Davis, standard stuff from him, dives into the stands, and then can't walk, and they bring him back in up 20 in the fourth quarter. It was the strangest thing I've ever seen. But Gentry, I mean, literally makes no sense. So.
Yeah, we'll see if Davis goes here tonight. I mean, he's expensive, and I don't think there's a much justification in rolling him against Minnesota at 11-6 when you got Westbrook and Harden on the slate tonight. I mean, he's a really good player, but you're looking 900 more on FanDuel than DraftKings. If you want him, go over to DK and get a little bit better value on him. And same kind of goes for Blake Griffin here. I think he could absolutely destroy Dallas here today, Hoop. But get this, I don't see this very often. I'm looking at the FanDuel DraftKings difference, and you can find that very easily on our projections. 1,100 more on FanDuel than DraftKings. That's crazy. Play him on DraftKings.
Yeah, I've been on Team Blake all season long. I think he's looked really good, and he's been super consistent when you consider the fact that they've blown out like 5 or 6 teams this year where he's only played like 28 minutes. Count on between the two is massive. On DraftKings, he's a really good value. On FanDuel, the decision's a little bit tougher at 9.5K, but I just still view him as a safe option. I mean, he's gotten it done in every single blowout this season where he hasn't really killed you. So I do like him tonight.
Yeah, I like him tonight. Draymond at 8K, Big T. Going against the Lakers, who might actually be a little bit shorthanded tonight. But, that last game, he had 29 minutes against Indiana, and that's about as big of a blowout as they were going to have. Most of the guys didn't play the fourth quarter and still gave us 38 fantasy points that day, nearly triple-dubbed, was going to clearly do that. 8K still seems kind of too cheap. He feels like a $8,900 player, and we're getting him at 8K tonight. Blowout is there, of course, but I think Draymond – a little less worried about it for him, especially when we get him cheap.
Yeah, I mean, I heard you guys talking a little bit when I came on about the small forward, how weak it looks with those guys up top, and then you got Harden and Westbrook. So, I mean, it's basically impossible to pay up at power forward tonight, except in tournaments where you want to get guys low-owned. I mean, all these guys up top at power forward should be low-owned just because of what you guys were talking about with those stars. I mean, the 4 stars – you really think most people are going to want to play probably 2 of those 4 stars in one way or another. So I just don't think you can pay up at power forward. Draymond's a great play if you can somehow get him in or in tournaments, I think.
Yeah, I think he's fine. And, if you want to fade top dogs in this one, go fair and balanced. It's hard to do that on a 13-game night when value is probably going to prop up at some point in time. But
it's so hard too. Like you said, the value is going to pop up, and it's so hard for me to fade 4 guys in pretty good spots. Like I feel like at least 1 or 2 of them is going to go completely ham for 60 plus probably.
Yeah. Let's look at the value though here. T, what do you like on this front? I mean, you say we got to pay down at there. Well, then give us guys to pay down with.
Yeah, I mean, right now, I always look at this Larry Nance for some reason. I know a lot of people make fun of him and stuff, but even watching him last night against pretty good big like Adams, I mean, he's in there battling. He got 27 minutes last night. He's only 3,900. the Lakers match up really good with Golden State, as we've seen the last 2 years. This one is at Golden State, so I don't see a spread yet, but I'm assuming it's pretty big. I mean, have you guys seen a number on this
No,
game?
I put it at 14.
Yeah, that's about where it's going to be somewhere around there, 13, 14. And I actually think the Lakers could maybe keep it close, but since they beat them, Golden State has blowout risk. But I still like Nance in that range. I love Jokic again. I mean, he only played 18 minutes, but he's been productive now, 3 straight games, even without big minutes. So he's still 4,500. So he's the type of guy I like, even against a tough front court. I mean, Kaminsky, if he's in the same role, 4,300. You got Ryan Anderson, 4,700. There's all kinds of guys down there. And then back to your original point, like by the time we get to tip-off, there's going to be some value open up down there. Like, who knows who it is, but one of these guys, I mean, even like Jared Dudley gets in the starting lineup or just someone down there.
Don't play Jared Dudley. He sucks. Don't play him, okay?
He's come through for me a few times. He gets the job done here.
Something like Siege. You and Siege on Team Jared Dudley.
You don't like 30-point fantasy games?
I don't like fat, slow guys and playing in the NBA. That's what I don't like.
Maybe I appreciate it being a fat, slow guy.
Who can shoot. He can shoot. Don't get me wrong. He can shoot. You know, and honestly, like, his game is probably not too far off of my own, but because I'm like you, fat and slow. But not somebody
where a fan was calling him out in the offseason. Did you see that whole thing on Twitter?
Who was?
Where some fan tweeted out that he was better than Jared Dudley or something. And blah, blah, somehow or another it happened like that. And then he said something about playing him for $10K, and then the guy said Dudley said, "I'll play you anywhere for $10K." He tweeted back at him that. Just let me know when and where.
Dudley for $10K. You're the one.
Normal like guy.
What's that?
Some normal like guy, like just some.
Well, what about you?
Like
You're not normal, AT. You're the one who thinks that you're the one who thinks you're the best at everything. Whether
I don't think
it's
I can beat an player one-on-one though.
No, not Jared Dudley even
one-on-one. I can't beat Jared Dudley one-on-one.
I think you could probably do better against Jared Dudley than you give yourself credit for.
He can't.
NBA player. Are you guys? Come on.
Tony couldn't beat me one-on-one. There's no chance he's getting Dudley. I can promise you that.
Pop a shot.
Let's hope Jared Dudley. I'm actually semi-nervous that somebody's going to forward this to Jared Dudley, and I'm going to have awkward Twitter correspondence. I don't want to do that because Jared Dudley's actually a nice guy. Like, I enjoy his conversations on podcasts and whatnot. He's just, I don't know, a little soft.
What do you think the score would be if you played him one-on-one?
Oh, I wouldn't score. I would not score because I'm too slow. Like, that's how you'd have to beat him. Like, out of the three of us, I'm guessing Hoop is the fastest. He probably would have the best.
He's faster than Jared Dudley, though, like in a lateral.
What are you talking about? Do you think Jared Dudley's fast?
He's an NBA player. He knows how to move his feet. Like, he's going to be able to keep Hoop in front of him.
Your boy Hoop's like a gazelle on the court, my friend.
I wish we could set this up. Like, you guys are killing me. He's an NBA player. He scores 30 fantasy points.
I'm not saying I can beat Dudley. I'm telling you that. There's no way. I
didn't say
I'm saying you would like drive by him and like lay it in.
No. I'm against you. I would do that. Not against Jared Dudley.
I was saying he's got a better chance against Dudley than you and I because we are fat and slow.
Chance against Dudley than me. Like, I'd be able to score on Dudley.
Okay.
I wouldn't be able to stop him ever though. I guarantee.
We love you, Jared Dudley. Let's set this up, okay? Next time you're.
I guarantee I'd score on him. Like, it's a fact. It's guaranteed.
It's a fact. You just go see now. This was the big team.
Like 11, like a normal one-on-one game. I guarantee I'd score as long as it wasn't make it take it because I would never get the ball back from him.
All right, let's get back to options here today. Hoop. I think some of the value ones he brought up are really in play, though. Keep your eye on Larry Nance because there's a situation with Julius Randle. He played last night, had that hip pointer, if you want to call that playing. He scored like 6 fantasy points. Yeah, I had him. Yeah. And it didn't work out well. So if Nance would move like into the starting lineup at under 4K in this tempo-up game here versus Golden State, that's borderline lock and load for him here. And then where do you fall between a Frank the Tank and maybe a Trey Lyles here if Favors is out, which I'm assuming he is going to be. Both are 42 and 4,300. We already got Zeller, I think, ruled out or doubtful for tonight, so he's probably not going to play.
I think Frank the Tank. Dude's been really impressive, and he doesn't even need the minutes, really. I mean, you look at what he's done in the last, 4 games, over 23 fantasy points in every game, and 3 of those games he's been, 27 minutes or below. So I think it's just a really safe option, and could catch a nice break if some of these guys are out here for Charlotte.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he mentioned Jokic. I can't do Jokic. Can you do Jokic?
Did it last night.
So
Worked out pretty well. It would have worked out a lot better if Mike Malone wasn't a freaking idiot and gave him 18 minutes on the court.
But do we think that that's going to change? I mean,
Last 2 games, it gets 26 fantasy points in 20 minutes and 18 minutes, and this guy can't get time. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
now Big Nurk wasn't terrible yesterday either. So,
That's the problem. Denver is so deep of good players. Like, they have to make a trade or something.
Since you missed that one real quick, I got to ask you because you're a fanboy. Do you have interest in playing Murray today after he went ham yesterday, Tony?
I look at him the exact same as I looked at him yesterday. I mean, I love Murray. I think he's awesome, but I don't think he's playable right this second, especially on a full slate.
Yeah, I think the full slate kind of makes it a little bit more
I think
nerve-wracking.
he's great, though. Do you guys think he's going to be as good as I do?
I like him as a player.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, he looked really good last night. He looked like the best player on the floor for the Nuggets.
Did you see that run? They scored 24 straight points behind him.
Yeah, he played really well. It's especially the night after where more people are going to be on him. His ownership's probably going to be higher than it should be. It kind of makes it a little bit easier fade. All right. Anybody else we miss here, Hoop? Trevor Booker? I don't know. I don't think so. But that's going to be a higher scoring game there, Brooklyn and Boston. We haven't talked about pretty much anybody from it.
Yeah, I mean, Booker's a player that I like. The problem is with their team there, and he's been pretty inconsistent with some production in the last, 2 out of 4 games. He's been 12 fantasy points or under. So there is some concern there. I mean, a guy like maybe Ryan Anderson is interesting. I mean, his price is super cheap, but obviously it's kind of hard to trust him with, playing alongside James Harden. But at 4.7K, we're looking for 23-ish fantasy points, and I think that's definitely doable for him, so I don't mind him. And then John Lure is another guy that kind of interests me as well. A guy I've been really consistent all season long. In the last 6 games, we've seen at least 21 fantasy points in 5 of those contests, and that's fine at 4.5K. So a couple guys there.
I got a guy that looks way too cheap that I just realized. I mean, Marvin Williams. I'm not a Marvin Williams guy at all. Like, I hate him, but 4,200. That seems like way too cheap for him.
Yeah, he does get San Antonio today.
They don't scare me though. I've been trying to pick on them a little bit more than most people would.
I mean, what's the ownership on Marvin versus Frank the Tank? I mean, you've got Frank the Tank 100 more than him.
Yeah, it'd be a big difference there between those two.
Yeah, I mean, Frank's going to be way higher owned, but Marvin, yeah, I mean, that's what makes Marvin a good play.
Yeah, well, and the other guy, keep your eye on the AD news. If he would sit today, Terrence Jones at 5-1. Fantasy point a minute last night. And if you were watching that game, he definitely got aggressive shooting that basketball when AD went out. So
how does that guy not get more minutes? Like,
I don't know. No clue.
Because
I think Dante Cunningham in his I don't know. I better stop ripping players here. But Dante
Cunningham is definitely worse than Dudley.
Gentry. He's got to be the worst coach in the NBA. Unless he's literally trying to lose games. I mean, unless he is trying to lose games, then he's doing a really good job.
All right, let's get to center here, boys. Got to get out of here. Lots of center options, though, for us to go to today. Joel Embiid, I'm assuming he's going to play today, right? This isn't the back end of the back-to-back. So 5,800 for him tonight. Again, man, it's like the same story for him over on FanDuel. Too cheap. And, matchup versus Memphis might not be ideal here, Hoop, but still a good value. Who would you rather have, though, him or Clint Capella at that same price against Toronto? And Capella's been playing real well, over 30 fantasy points in 4 of his last 5. And the one he missed, he was at 27, so he's right there.
initially I was going to say Embiid, but that's a pretty tough decision when you look at the minutes here for Capella on the rise, at least 25 in 6 straight games, and then 31 and 35 in the last 2. So early on in the season, it appeared it was some sort of a split between Capella and Nene, and Capella is kind of emerging there. So that's a tough decision. I think I still might go with Embiid. Just that usage rate is just pretty crazy right now. So probably Embiid, but it's close.
Take me through your favorites here at the position. I've got a couple. I got my eye on here, T, but I'm going to give you the floor.
I mean, you name the two that stick off the page at me, Embiid and Capella. And for me, it's clear for Capella just because of Marc Gasol. I mean, he's probably the best defensive center in the league, even all these years now where he's been a little banged up. But he's good enough to slow him down in only 20 to 24 minutes. I'd rather just play Capella. I mean, he played 35 minutes and 30 minutes the last 2, so he's finally getting more and more minutes, and I just think he's a more secure play.
I think there's a lot of interesting guys kind of in this, upper 6, low 7s that we got to look at. I mean, Gasol against Philadelphia here, he should eat in this matchup. He's just really, really good. He's starting to be healthy, and I don't think playing time's a real concern for him. At under 7K, that's really good value. And then the last 2 games we've seen Al Horford really step up and play well. We talked about it earlier that Boston's getting the biggest bump in terms of season average points per game projection versus expected today at about 6. And he's been mega consistent and, gets Brook Lopez. And then even Brook Lopez opposite of him, doesn't play a ton of minutes, but he's played quality minutes over the last few games. And, I mean, we've seen him with 50 fantasy point upside, but 36, 34, 50, 29, 32, 32, another 50 there in the last 10 games. So yeah. I think all those guys are interesting today.
Yeah, I think Horford stands out as a guy that's super interesting to me. I mean, 7.2K, coming off the concussion. Obviously, the minutes are nothing to be concerned about, 34 and 36 in the last 2 games, and really fits nicely in this offense, contributing all across the board and gets probably his best matchup since returning. So I think Horford's a guy that definitely stands out. 7.2K is much too cheap. If they're going to be using him in this sort of fashion, he's a guy that will be paying over 8K for moving forward.
One other guy I like, 2T, Alex Len. They moved him to center on FanDuel. Was at power forward, I believe. He's at 5'2", got over 30 minutes last game, and got us the double-double, 30 fantasy points, kind of 6X. Orlando's abysmal anyway. I think he could certainly have a fine game tonight.
Yeah, literally any time Chandler's out, I mean, you just need to put Len at least on your list to where you don't forget about him and kind of see where he slides in as you're building your teams. But he's a great play always, and he's got that upside. I mean, everyone remembers last year that plays DFS where he was dropping 50 a couple nights in a row, and he was one of the best values all year. And, yeah, I mean, in that same range, too, Steven Adams is similar to me. Every night he makes my list to where he's in consideration just because of the minutes more than anything. How many centers are guaranteed over 30 minutes with a guy like Westbrook dropping off easy dimes to him at a pretty cheap price? So definitely both of those guys as well.
DeAndre still looks cheap too at 6'6". I mean,
going against that, but then I look at him and I look at his box scores, and it's just I don't know.
Yeah, I was agreeing
17 and 15 last game isn't bad.
Yeah, I was agreeing with you until I saw Maurice Spates out there. Spates is digging into his minutes from last season. The reason we liked DeAndre so much last year and we're paying a premium is because he was playing 40 minutes a game. The signing of Maurice Spates, who appears to fit in really well with this team, and he's contributing off the bench, I think this is a pretty accurate price for DeAndre Jordan.
Yeah. And last game he shot 9 for 14 from the free throw line. Way to go, DeAndre. Yeah. That's solid. But it's funny because he hasn't been fouled at all. Look at the games prior. 0, 0, 2, and 2. He shot 4 free throws the 4 games prior and then got 14 versus Toronto. Went 17 and 15, but inexplicably normally always has 2 to 3 blocks or an assist or a steal along the way. Nothing else but 1 block. So should have probably going to, more times than not, when he goes 17-15, he's going to be in the 40s. Didn't quite get there last game. GPP play for you. All right. I think that covers it, guys. We got to get out of here. So Thanksgiving plans. Hoop. What's the Thanksgiving meal of, I don't want to say meal of choice, but the dish of choice?
I am just not like a turkey guy. I hate turkey. I think it's disgusting, just dry. For me, more of like a stuffing type guy, mac and cheese if that's available, but definitely no turkey. I don't like it.
So is there going to be turkey and you just go somewhere else?
Yeah, there will be. I mean, I'll eat some, but just not a big fan of it.
Okay. What about you, T?
I mean, I'll go contrarian and say I don't even like Thanksgiving food all that much. I mean, I hate turkey too. I'm with Hoop, and I like macaroni, I guess, but I'd rather just get like normal food like pizza. I hate Thanksgiving food.
Well, is your wife going to go and cook, or is it just like...
No, we're going over to Grandma's house. I mean, she's going to have the spread ready for us.
I'll tell you what, I'm going contrarian here too. I'm okay with turkey. I don't love it. I'm okay with it. I'll eat it, enjoy it. But I'm a sweet potato guy. I love me some sweet potatoes. That's the thing for me. So
yeah, I like that call, actually. I mean, that's probably one of my, right there with macaroni and cheese. I do like those two probably the best. And I do like apple pie, pumpkin pie, I should say. I might be the only one that loves pumpkin pie for some reason.
I don't think you're alone in that one, Tony.
You guys like it?
I'm okay.
Everyone makes fun of me.
Although my mother-in-law, she makes this pumpkin pie that's crustless. It's crustless pumpkin pie. And then they're kind of health conscious, so they don't put in the she doesn't put like any sugar in it. It's got like Splenda. So it's like,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I got some cupcakes as well. So, but that's going to wrap us up for today. Hey, thank you so much for giving us a listen and download. Before we get out of here, though, quick thank you to our friend at the Books. Again, it's holiday season. If you want to be a better guy to the special people in your life, well, guess what? Send them something from thebooks.com. Freshest premium flowers you can buy, freshly cut from sustainable and responsible farms, and prices start at a mere $40. No unnecessary or frivolous upsells, plus free weekday delivery when you register with them with no hidden fees. And, hey, you know what? It's common sense, not rocket science. So go to thebooks.com right now. Listeners of the show, you're saving $15. Just go to books.com/rotogrinders. That's BOUQS.com/rotogrinders and give them a chance to earn your business and send something nice to your wife, mother-in-law, and they'll appreciate you that much more. Guys, have yourself a great Thanksgiving. We'll chat again next week on the podcast. Be sure to stay tuned. Tons of great content for you throughout the day moving into Thanksgiving. So for my buddies Hoop and Big T, I'm Dan, and we will see you.